Thank you, Mr. Arora, for letting us come here to interview you. Tell us about yourself and how you became involved in renewable energy.
Welcome to Innovate Mississippi, and thank you for taking this beautiful Friday afternoon to come out there to talk about renewable energy. I've been working with renewable energy for the last almost 13 years now, and I used to work in a chemical fertilizer factory in Mississippi, but then we actually used to use a lot of natural gas, which of course that you know is a fossil fuel, but the price volatility in the natural gas, which means the price of natural gas was going from anywhere from $2 per million BTUs, what they call, to almost $12, $13 a million BTUs. So 10, 5, 6 times the price. And it was going up and down wildly. So which means that the price of our raw materials that we use to make the fertilizer with was changing drastically up and down, and it was really causing a lot of problems for our business at the time. And as a result of that price increases in our raw materials to make the fertilizer, our company actually, along with some other fertilizer companies in the US, also ended up filing bankruptcy and going out of business. So that led me to actually a different career in renewable energy, because as a fertilizer manufacturer, we were already looking at see how we could diversify and start going into other products. And getting into biofuels was actually a natural fit for us, because as you know, biofuels are made from agricultural crop commodities, and we were already in the business of selling fertilizer to farmers, so we thought, perfectly, we could do biofuels, because we already have a customer base who could provide us with the raw materials for making biofuels. So that's actually how I got into the biofuels first, when I was in the chemical fertilizer side. Little did I know that's what I was going to be doing for the next almost half decade. So.
What are different types of renewable energy?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. But there are lots of different types of renewable energy. But when you think about renewable energy, the word renewable means that it basically you have you can either regenerate it, or it has kind of a limitless supply for it. And the point that I try to make everybody, right, pretty much every form of energy on the planet, on the earth, really is derived from the sun. So it's because of the sun that we have the wind pattern. So the different forms of renewable energy that we generally think of are solar energy, wind energy, biomass, you have hydro energy, and you have geothermal. Those are kind of the 5 big classes of energy. But if you think about it, really everything, the sun really powers this planet, right? It's the heat that we get from the warmth that we get from the sun is what creates the wind patterns, creates the atmospheric patterns, which creates the winds. And also creates the tides because of the gravitational pull. So that's why we have hydro energy, or the ocean energy, wave energy they call it. So really, but broadly speaking, when people talk about renewable energy, they're really talking about 5 main different types of energy, and that's solar energy, wind energy, biomass, hydro, and geothermal. But again, when I think of renewable energy, I think, boy, if the sun weren't around, none of this would be around. So, and when we talk about these different types of energy, it's really different ways of capturing the solar energy, the energy that we get from the sun that hits the planet.
Tell me about your experience with renewable energy, please.
So experience in terms of was it good or bad, or
Positive.
I'm very passionate about renewable energy, but it's a challenging field to be in. So it's not necessarily all great, all good. There's downsides to trying to get involved with renewable energy also. Of course, the benefits of having renewable energy is that you don't, it's going to be around. I mean, the sun, we hope, is going to be around a few billion years to power the planet. So that means we have, as long as the sun is around, we have energy source. And as long as we can figure out different ways to capture that energy. Of course, compare that to what they call the fossil fuels, which basically is a limited amount of energy, right? It's whatever is present in the ground, in the Earth's surface, in the core of the Earth, is what we can mine. So we have a limited resource. Now that resource may last us 500-600 years, or maybe even more than that, depending on how how wisely we use it. But it's still a finite supply. In other words, there was a beginning and there's an end to it. With renewable energy, of course, the main benefit is that it's going to be around forever. We have to figure out ways to capture it. And the other benefit, of course, is the fact that you can actually do it more efficiently in the sense that it's better for the environment because they're not as polluting. So when you capture the sun's energy using solar panels, you're not burning a fuel, which means you're not causing pollution. Same thing when you're generating wind energy. Now, you can argue that there's still some amount of pollution from emissions even for making those products, right? So, the point is, but it's a lot less amount of pollution coming from the renewable resources than there would be from burning fossil fuels. So, two major things, right? One, it's going to be around. Number two, you're limiting on the pollution side.
What do you do at Innovate Mississippi?
So Innovate Mississippi is what we consider a non-profit organization, or sometimes they're called non-governmental organizations also, which means that our mission at Innovate Mississippi is to help grow the state's economy. And when we talk about growing the state's economy, we're talking about really helping build new businesses from people who are developing new technologies and becoming innovative about newer processes. So we help companies and entrepreneurs to build businesses through technology development, new and innovative ways of doing things. And our role is to be able to coach those companies and the entrepreneurs and then connect them to the resources that they need. So what we say is we coach and then we connect. And connecting means, some of these people probably need money to be able to bring their ideas to the market. In other words, take their products and make those products a reality. So we find the right type of investors for those people and bring the two together. So at Innovate Mississippi, our goal is to be able to coach and connect these entrepreneurs. The other part that we do at Innovate Mississippi also is work heavily with the manufacturers in Mississippi. And when I say manufacturers, we're talking about people from Nissan and Toyota to a small company that may be making just small products. Like there's in fact a very popular product that's sold nationwide called the Bacon Bowl. It's a little plastic thing that you can wrap bacon in, and you can stick it in the microwave oven, and it makes a little cup out of bacon, and then you can put cheese in there, or you can put ice cream in there for that matter. But it's called the Perfect Bacon Bowl, and we actually helped the company manufacture the Perfect Bacon Bowl. So we work a lot with the manufacturers in Mississippi also, and we help them become more efficient in their process and also help them develop new and innovative products. So again, entrepreneurs and manufacturers are two types of people that we work with.
What is a megawatt?
All right, I'll help you understand what the watts are, right? So have you guys, all of you have seen typical traditional incandescent light bulbs? You know what an incandescent light bulb is? Just like a regular old-fashioned light bulb. Not this one, right? What's this light bulb called?
Fluorescent light bulb?
A fluorescent? Yeah, there's one other word along with fluorescent, right?
A fake light bulb?
Fake light bulb? Well, this one's not fake, right? It's foam, right? I can throw it at you and it won't hurt you and won't break. But yeah, so this is what's called a compact fluorescent light bulb, right? The squiggly ones, right? So the old-fashioned were the regular, the dome shaped incandescent light bulbs, right? So it had a little filament in there. So a typical light bulb, right, is what's called 60 watts, right? So in other words, it takes that much energy, that much power to run that light bulb. So when you're generating electricity, you're measuring that in terms of the watts that you're generating, right? So if you're generating a kilowatt hours, that means you're in 1 hour's worth, you're generating 1 kilowatt. That's a kilowatt hour. So when we bring electricity into a household or a business, you're measuring it in kilowatt hours, right? And so 1,000 kilowatt hours would make 1,000 megawatt hours. So if you wanted to make 1,000 megawatt hours in 1 hour, you have to have 1 megawatt worth of power generation capacity, right? So if you're solar panels, you have to have enough solar panels that give you 1 megawatt in 1 hour. So a megawatt really is actually a function of power of electricity, which is voltage times current, right? So, and we don't necessarily want to get into the math of that thing right now, but it's basically, and what I was telling you earlier, right? So we will have 150 megawatts of energy. A typical household in a month will use 2,000 kilowatt hours, so 2 megawatt hours per month is what a house would use on a typical basis, right? So that's maybe a 2,500 square foot home would use about that, maybe a little bit, then depending on where you are, right? Some homes can go as little as 1,000 kilowatt hours per month for usage, which is 1 megawatt hour per usage. So in order to be able to supply that much power, you have to have that much generation capacity is what they call it, right? So that's what the megawatt comes in. So that's why when you're saying, okay, 100 megawatt system will supply about 100 homes, right? Let's say 100,000 homes. We'll have to do the math on that. We'll make sure we get that math correct on that. But that's basically what that tells you is, on the average, how many homes you can supply the power for. Now, business is a different story, right? If you have a very energy intensive business, let's say, I was talking about material science earlier and metallurgy. Well, those guys have to have huge furnaces, right? And when I say furnaces, we're talking about taking metal from out of the ground and melting it. So you take iron and you basically get it so hot that it melts. And that takes a lot of energy. So there are some industries that are really what they call energy intensive industries. And for them, they require a lot of energy. So you have to have both heat, from natural gas or from coal or whatever you have. You could not do that with solar energy. The solar panels are just will not give you enough power to really do all that you need in some really energy intensive industries. So you have to rely on fossil fuels or nuclear power at this point to do some of those things.
What are opportunity costs and trade-offs for using biomass energy?
So biomass energy, actually, there's actually several in that sense, right? Because first of all, one of the big challenges with biomass is, right, it's not a very dense material, right? So here's a jar of wood pellets. So when you see all that, look at all these open spaces that are in the wood pellets, right? They're not really packed tightly in because they have kind of a distinct shape, and they're not that heavy either because they're made from wood. So the density of biomass is not that high. So what happens is when the density of a material is not very high. So now compare that to this piece of, this kind of a sample of the cotton thing, bale, right? And it's packed in really tightly. So they do that so in order to be able to ship it long distances. The challenge with biomass in general, and cotton, you don't really want to burn cotton because it's got higher value. So you want to be able to use whatever biomass you're using for its highest value possible. You don't want to take something and burning it. That's why there's such a debate about when you use corn. People say, well, you're taking something that's going to be used for food, and now we're burning it for fuel. So they call it the food versus fuel debate. In other words, the opportunity is, could you be using this biomass for actual food source, and now we're taking and burning it and consuming it for fuel. So there's an opportunity cost there, right? What is it that we want to get more value out of? Is the food more valuable or is the fuel more valuable? So we have to make that decision. And in some cases, it works out where the fuel it's appropriate to use it for fuel purposes. In some cases, that you shouldn't be doing that. Same thing, right, with the density. The other challenge with the density of the biomass is that because it's not very heavy, or compared to oil and gas, or not gas, but compared to oil. Oil is a very dense material, so you can transport more of it for longer distance. So with biomass, you can only go so far before you have to figure, then you can't process it anymore. So you have to be able to use it locally. So the advantage, of course, from Mississippi is that we have the potential to use biomass locally because we have it all over our state. So we can set up biomass processing plants for energy in different parts of the state because they'll be close, within 30, 40, 50 miles of where enough biomass is available to be able to process it for making both liquid biofuels and for making electricity. So Mississippi is actually blessed with a lot of the biomass resources in a lot of different parts of the state. Now they vary from one state to the other, so you have to use a little bit different types of technologies to convert that biomass to energy, but it is available all over the state. So that's kind of the benefit. In fact, we were rated as the top 5 states in the country for biomass availability. So we're among the leaders in that.
How can we improve the use of renewable resources economically?
Well, in certain things, the price of renewable resources, or when you say resources, right, I'll frame it a little bit differently. The technology to use the resources, the solar is already a resource, wind is a resource. So the technology to capture those resources has really drastically come down. Just in the last 10 years, the price of solar power, harnessing solar energy from the sun using photovoltaics has come down like 3-4 times. So 10, 15 years ago, it used to cost, let's say, $6, and again, we're talking about, watts here, right, per kilowatt to install it, per watt rather, $6 a watt. Now we're talking about $2 a watt. So it's a big difference now. It's a third of the price of what it used to be. So economically, a lot of these energy technologies prices have come down. And like anything else, right? The more we use these things, the greater the price lower, will be, right? So when think about the computer memory, right? Hard drives and computers, when they first came out, they were very expensive. But now computers are pretty cheap because the technology to convert, make the little integrated chips and the screens and things like that. I mean, even the flat screen TVs, right? When they first came out, you used to have to pay literally $3,000 or $4,000 for that. Now we can get for $500 or $600 easy, right? A big one, nice big one. So it's a matter of using more of these things, which will hopefully bring to even lower prices.
How can we improve the use of renewable resources ecologically?
Well, ecologically, we have to educate a lot of people. So not everybody necessarily understands the impact that the fossil fuels are causing. So there are sciences out there, but sometimes it's often misunderstood, and oftentimes people get into politics of the energy usage. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done in terms of really helping people understand. Number one, hey, it's a finite resource, right? At some point in time, it's going to run out. Now, whether it's in our lifetime, in your lifetime, or in your kid's lifetime, right? Or maybe even your grandkid's lifetime. But at some point in time, right? I mean, it may be 500 years from now that it runs out, but it will run out. And when you historically think about it, we really have only been using fossil fuels for the last 300 years, maybe, right? So 1700s, when you think about it, was kind of the Industrial Revolution, right? When we first started using coal. So from 1700 to, let's just say, 2200, right? We're going to have used up all the resources, and that's it, right? So it's a very short lifespan for the fossil fuel resources. And we don't think about it long term. We're only concerned about, what's the price of it today, but we're not worried about what the price of it is tomorrow. So it's really important to educate people that, hey, at some point in time, the price will be higher. Right now, we're seeing a big dip in the price of oil because we think there's too much oil. But again, when you think long term, there's only so much oil in the ground. And right now, even some of the oil is pretty expensive to get to. So people are having to shut some of the wells down because they're not economical right now, because it's too expensive to get the oil out from the what they call the fracking. So it's a very delicate balance between what is beneficial for us from an ecological standpoint and how our economics work on that. So the two really have to work hand in hand.
What do you think the future of renewable energy will be like?
Well, it's bright. How's that, right? When you talk about solar energy, it's the prices have come down a lot, and I think they're going to continue coming down to some point, and then they'll kind of flatten out like it does. But then at least you know what the price to expect is. And I think there's a lot of technologies that are being developed right now. I'm actually working on a technology right now that's taking poultry waste, so the chicken poop. We're trying to convert that into renewable energy also, and we have a project right here in Mississippi. It's actually the first of its kind in the world, I would say, almost, that's been pioneered on a farm. And we've built a similar one in Arkansas and one in Kentucky. And it takes the poultry waste and converts it into what's called a biogas. So it's almost like natural gas, but it's biogas. And you can run a generator with that, and you can heat the poultry houses, what they call. That's the big barns that they grow the chicken in. So we're always discovering and inventing new technologies to take renewable energy and make it more economical. That's what the challenge is right now, right? Because it's not cost competitive with fossil fuels. But there's a lot of research that's going on in terms of taking, another project that I'm working on is taking what they call algae, or little microalgae. They're small plants that grow in different types of water conditions, and be able to convert those into liquid biofuels as well too. So there's a lot of different technologies that are emerging that I think really will make renewable energy more competitive, and certainly help both on the transportation side. The other thing that we really didn't even get into, and I think it's really important, is energy efficiency, is being able to use energy and being able to conserve more energy, use less of it, but actually produce more output from it. So when we talk about energy efficiency, oftentimes people think, oh, we should not be using much energy and we should just limit our use for energy. But I think that there's really kind of an important point to make there, that we're only trying to use less energy, but at the same time we're trying to increase our output of whatever we do. So the key thing that we have to look at is that per unit of goods produced, we're using less energy. So that's what energy efficiency is all about. If you stop using energy, then our economy is not going anywhere, right? So we can't just do that. So what we have to do is learn as to how to use less energy but produce more output from it. So in other words, use it more efficiently and more wisely. So that's really important. And I think we're seeing a lot of work that's being done on the energy efficiency side as well.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I was just talking about energy efficiency, so I think that's really important. And I think even in your homes, when you put your website up, I think that's the message that you should be telling your fellow students also, and showing them how you guys can be the leaders in using energy more efficiently. So part of it could be just that you turn the lights off when you're not in the home, or turn the TV off when you're not in the room, or have sometimes you can put little sensors in a bathroom, let's just say, right? So the light will automatically go off, that you don't have to worry about it. So these are easy technologies to put. And then replacing, so we talked about the compact fluorescent light bulbs versus the regular light bulbs. So a regular light bulb, let's say, is 60 to 100 watts. The compact fluorescent light bulbs are only about 15 watts, right? So they're using 1/5 of the electricity. But the newer light bulbs, which have really come down in price as well too, are the LED light bulbs. Actually, a little component, right? That they have, and LEDs have been around a long time. Diodes have been around a long time. So, but the newer types of light bulbs use LEDs to produce light, right? So they use maybe only 4 or 5 watts or 6 watts. So really, you're talking about, compared to a 60-watt light bulb, you're using 1/10 the amount of power, right? So only 10% of the power is being used for an LED light bulb that would be for conventional 60-watt incandescent light bulb.
But does it take up the same amount of time, or does it have a shorter amount of time? Would you have to change it more often?
Actually, you have to change a lot less. A typical LED bulb can last for 20,000 hours of burning time, whereas these bulbs maybe 4,000 or 5,000 hours. So not only do you actually benefit from a much longer lasting bulb, but also use a lot less energy. And the price of those has come down, right? So a typical 60-watt bulb is maybe 50 cents per light bulb. The LEDs, you still have to pay about $2, so you're paying 4 times as much, but it's lasting you 10 times longer and using a lot less energy. So you can it'll pay for itself in a matter of a year or so.
So the LED is both cost effective and environment positive.
That's right. It uses a lot less energy. That's exactly right.
So the better choice would be the LED light bulb.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what you should tell your friends too. So when next time they go buy new light bulbs from their home, they need to buy LED light bulbs.
Thank you for giving the time to let us interview you.
It has been amazing.
Yeah, I've
Been a
enjoyed it.
pleasure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for coming here.
Well, thank you for seeing.
Yeah.